Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's special episode of Heavy Metal Tones with a sort of a just bonus episode I thought I'd chuck out there for you guys. I interviewed one of my musical heroes a few months ago. It's really a pleasure in this to be where I am in life, to be able to sit down and talk to people that I would never ever in a million years thought I would talk to. Pinch myself, Tony, I'd said sometimes when the guy who gets me the interview said, hey, would you want to talk to Richard Jobson from the Skids? I literally jumped out of a chair and almost bit his hand off. Now, as you know, I do some work on the side for Metal Ruse. It's voluntarily do their review page. I sort of set up the reviews for the review page and for the people that do the writing and sort the folders out and all that kind of bit of admin-y stuff. It gets my ear to the ground, keeps my ear to the music that's coming out and is out to listen to, which is also good. But also, alternatively, I do a few interviews for them. And I said, this is Richard Jobson recording an interview with me just while he was in Scotland. I was here. It was in summer here and winter there, or sort of around that time. And it's to promote the tour of the Skids Down Under for the first time ever. I unfortunately didn't get to the show because it was in Sydney and I had some family commitments. Happens. But I got to talk to Richard, so you might learn some interesting facts about this brilliant singer and the brilliant band. I've always been a huge fan of the Skids, Scotland's premier punk band, in my opinion. People might say exploited, but I'm going to say no, as in the first wave of punk, definitely the Skids. Everyone has heard, or may have heard, the Green Day version of The Saints Are Coming and all that sort of stuff, right? So, Masquerade is another big single of theirs, right? They've got lots of punk singles that you know and go, hang on, I'm sure I've heard that. Goodbye Civilian, one of my favourites. There's a lot out there anyway. That's enough of me prattling on. I'm going to now let you listen to my interview with Richard Jobson. Take it away, Tony and Richard. So, Richard, how are you going? What's it like over there?
Well, it's freezing cold, and there's the first frost of the year. It's brutal. So, the sooner I get out of here and get down to the southern hemisphere, the better, I think.
Yeah, because it's your first time over here, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We nearly came before, just at the end of the Skids. We were at the peak of our powers at the time. We just played Hammer Cody, sold it out. We had a number one album with The Absolute Game, and then Stuart Adamson decided to, go off and do something else. It was like, whoa. It wasn't totally unexpected, but it screwed up all these other things because we were going to come down and tour Australia, New Zealand, and then go off to North America. So all those plans ended immediately. So it was a sad day, really.
I can imagine it would be, because I mean he was a sort of a big cog in your machine, wasn't he? Really?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was a problematic guy in many ways. He had his, he had his own. Well, we all have our own idiosyncrasies, but he had a lot of. I think he had a lot of dark stuff going on behind the scenes. So, but obviously, because we all know what happened to him in the end. So I think that kind of affected his behaviour, and so he was a kind of fairly emotionally delicate guy. You had to. He was like treading on eggshells when you were working with him. You had to be very, very careful. But we had a good working relationship. Initially we were incredibly strong friends, and then that kind of started to go in different directions.
Yeah.
I think, I was out. I wanted to discover the world. He wanted to discover his talent. So that was. And that was the difference between the two of them. He had talent, I had none.
Oh, rubbish. You know that, Richard. Rubbish. The thing I think about the Skids, because I've grown up with you as your band since I was a very young boy. My brother was one of the first sort of punks in about 1976, 77. And I remember hearing all the time, Scared to Dance, Days in Europa. And it's sort of like how do I say this without blowing smoke up you? But the sound is so unique to the new wave sound that was coming through then. I think from you guys. Maybe is it because from Scotland? Maybe do you think it's a different?
I know. I think initially we weren't that different, because Stuart was the principal songwriter at the beginning. He wrote both the music and the words, and we were just kids. I mean, I was by far the youngest, because I was just turning 16 really when I joined the band. So we were a bit of a copycat punk band at the beginning. But Stuart was, for his age, was quite an incredible guitar player, which was unusual in the punk scene. So he started to use his accomplishments in a much more sophisticated way as we moved on. And then he encouraged me to concentrate on my more abstract lyrics, the things that I wrote. Because his things were a bit more social realist. They were commentaries about the world as he saw it around him. Mine were a little bit more internalized. So he encouraged that. And I think his music changed then, because he tried to make his music fit my words. Whereas before, he was making the words, work within the boundaries of his music. And that, therefore, it was much easier, because it was much more like the Clash or the Ramones or the Sex Pistols. Whereas when he started to work around my words, he had to think differently. And you can tell that, you can hear it in some of the songs on Scared to Dance, and then that evolves into Masquerade. And then, of course, in Europa, I found my, confidence as a writer of lyrics and things like Animation. And
my favourite, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best lyric I ever wrote, I think.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I remember Bill Nelson saying to me when we were recording it, he said, "Where the hell did this lyric come from?" And I thought he meant it badly, because I used to get a lot of criticism for my lyrics from, those cultural studies students who work for the NME. So I suffered quite badly with abuse from them, but nonetheless, I stuck by it. But Bill was really very, very supportive when he read the lyrics to Masquerade. And then into one of the first tracks we did was Animation, and of course it had Rusty Egan on drums, and he kind of innovation to the drums, which we had never had before. And we used a lot of keyboards, Virgin weren't very happy with the mix of Days in Europa, so they did another version of it, and they had it remixed. There's a kind of myth about the album was withdrawn because of the nature of the graphic.
Yeah, I've got a copy of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just bullshit. I mean, that I'll just show you is available today.
Yeah, I have one. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's been re-released, and that cover was never ever taken off the shelf. They just did another version of the album. So the deal that we agreed with Virgin was that they could do another version and do a remix if they wanted to, but the other one had to stay there. So there was just two versions. That's all it was. It was never withdrawn. It was never banned. It was all bullshit, but these are the kind of things that how history is told, that these kind of myths, rather than kind of gathering dust in a corner in the darkness, they actually sometimes become quite prevalent. And that's the story. The story is told through these myths and missed tales. And you think, well, how the hell did that happen? So it's kind of quite good for me to put it straight sometimes.
It's nice to, yeah, it's nice to hear, because I mean, as a student of punk music, listening to it, as from a distance, because I was not old enough, I was like 10 when it erupted. There's lots of myth and mythology and storytelling around it, right? And it's always nice to hear it from you, because I always thought it was the cover. I was like, yeah, no, it must be the cover.
That cover was never not available, and it's more available now than ever because it was just re-released.
Yeah.
And did extraordinarily well. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but we released a new album, Destination Dusseldorf,
which is great, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. And in Scotland, anyway, we got to number 1 and number 2 with the re-release of Days in Europa, which is quite an extraordinary feat, because something we didn't expect and could never have hoped for. But there it was. It happened. So certainly there's an appetite for vinyl, but it seems at the moment an appetite for our vinyl, which is magic.
Which is brilliant. I must have a lot of your singles. The question I have to ask you is, on the new album, are you using are you sampling any of the older riffs that you used before? There's something in there that I was hearing, Charade or Masquerade. I was hearing something in there, and I don't know whether it's just me.
We decided to replicate the sound, I think, was the idea. We ended up using the same guitars and the same cabinets. So we used H&H cabinets, which are really cheap, horrible Japanese cabinets that Stuart and I used to use, because by the time Days in Europa came, I was playing guitar by then. I never wanted to, but there was so much guitar work on certainly the Absolute Game album that I had to play rhythm guitar underneath it. But when on Destination Dusseldorf, we decided that the sounds were worth replicating, so we used the old H&H cabinets, we used Yamaha SG 2000s and 1000s like we used to in the old days, and we kind of replicated the sound. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And we didn't use an awful lot of keyboards on it. It's much more of a guitar stroke vocal-led album with big anthems. So it's very skidsy.
Very skidsy, because when I was listening to it, I was sitting there on the bus on the way to work a few days ago, and thinking, yeah, that bloody sounds like it was just a deep.
No, it's definitely feels like a Skids album. I mean, the one we did before, Burning Cities, is quite innovative. We worked with Youth, the great producer from Killing
brilliant.
Joke. Yeah, and he produced it, but it's got his stamp on it really, and his version of the Skids, which is interesting because he sees the Skids in a slightly different way to how we see ourselves. But that in itself is a great experience. And I loved working with him. He's a dear friend. But on this occasion, we just worked on our own, and we decided to kind of replicate that sound, just to see if we could. What would Stuart Adamson's guitar sound like through digital technology if he was still in the Skids in 2020? And I think we nailed it. I
think you did. It's got such a skiddy sound. I was a good, geez, it takes me back to being a teenager, like. Hearing that again.
Yeah, and songs go down well live. We do a couple. It's difficult, really, when you do a gig, and we play for just over an hour, and people want to hear the songs they're familiar with. They don't want to hear new songs. So I kind of beg people's indulgence and say, can we just at least do one? And then we get away with one. And if we come back on stage again, then we knock out, another one, like we do Here We Go Again, which segues into Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed, and then goes back to the song again. So all stuff that we used to do when we were in the Skids. It was normal for, like, on stage with me and Stuart, I would say, let's do All the Young Dudes.
Oh, brilliant.
The David Bowie song. And we would just play it because we were such lovers of music. We know these songs inside out. Or we would go into some of our favourite punk songs whilst we were playing live. And we wouldn't have prearranged it. We just felt like, let's do it. So we started to do that a little bit with the Skids now. Sometimes if I'm in the mood, I'll turn around and say, let's do What Do I Get by the Buzzcocks.
Oh, brilliant.
Pretty Vacant by the Pistols, or Submission, whatever. Just we do seem to, once the confidence is there, you can do it, and when we were at the peak of our powers, when I was working with Stuart, we did that every night, but we never programmed it. It was definitely
a feel. Yeah.
It was an instinctive thing.
Yeah.
And it normally came from me, see how I felt, and then we would go into it. Interesting, I remember when we were doing the gig with the Buzzcocks at the Albert Hall in London, and it became a memorial for the sad loss of Pete Shelley.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. So they asked me to sing one of the songs, and I went up and I did a fiction romance, and I turned up, and we did the rehearsal, and I did it in one take with no lyrics in front of me. And they went, what just happened there? I went, yeah, but it was good. And they went, do you need to do it again? I said, sure, if you want to. So we did it again. It was perfect. And they went, I said, haven't all the other guest singers, don't they know the song like this? And they went, no, because they all come up with lyrics and we have to work on it, but they don't really know the arrangement. That was it. And I said, yeah, but that's because I grew up with that song as a kid. You know, that's one of my favorite songs. I've probably heard it 10,000 times. I know the words inside out. And as I said, you know, towards the end of the set, I sometimes would turn around to Stuart and say, let's do fiction romance, you know, and we would do it.
Brilliant.
Because we were such music lovers and fans of music that we knew all the words and knew all the chords. The chords weren't particularly complicated anyway, I might add.
No.
And we knew all the harmonies and stuff. And it was great fun. It made the adventure much more exciting. And for me, that's really important, because if it just becomes the Skids on stage playing the tried and tested songs that we all know and no communication with the audience, then count me out. You know, it's just not for me.
Well,
I talk and tell stories, and I've had a bit of a life, you know, so it's worth sharing some of those stories with people.
I think you're right. You know, like you've been to more gigs than I'd like to shake a stick at. And I honestly, the ones I get the most out of are with the singers, a bit of raconteur, you know, a bit of storytelling. I mean, Scott, you're a Scotsman, you're a natural storyteller, right?
Well, some people like it, and some people don't. You know, I mean, I've had people say, just get on with the music.
Oh, no.
You know, but I would say in percentage terms, 90% of the audience are really up for it, and they love the self-deprecatory, you know, that's going on where you're telling quite amusing stories about the characters that were part of your life. You know, be them quite famous people like Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols or whatever, but you're telling them very anecdotal, subjective stories that they would never know.
No,
kind of funny, and you know, and then it works. It really works, and some people think it's a bit vaudevillian, but who gives a shit, you know?
Yeah, but don't you think that's the punk ethic, though? Don't you think the whole point of it was that it was to stop what you weren't these big sort of behemoth gods on stage away from everyone else. You were part of it. It's what changed. It's why music is as good as it is now, because of it.
I totally agree. But I go and see a lot of bands too, and obviously we do festivals with some bands from our era, a similar genre, and they have no communication with the audience. It's basically about turning up, playing the songs, and getting out of there as quickly as possible. Whereas we have an old-fashioned sensibility. We actually, I certainly do the gig.
Entertainment.
Dry off, tell stories, then get out, meet people, do all this stuff, all the selfie and all that, but then go and meet people and talk to them and hear about their stories. Because essentially there's no difference. And I've loved that quality from day one with the Skids. I remember Joe Strummer saying to me, we played with the Clash when we were kids in Dunfermline. And we were first on. It was us then, I think, Richard Hell and the Boys and the Clash.
Wow.
And so Joe and Mick watched us. We actually had to go on before the doors were open. So we were actually playing to an empty room. And then people came in. But Joe and Mick didn't realise they were playing, even though they were playing in our hometown, we were quite a cult band. So people were running to the small stage that we were on. And we got quite a phenomenal response. And Joe told me the story. He said, him and Mick went off going, holy shit, how do we follow that? And I'm thinking, the Clash.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So they were amazing, I might add. But when they said that they were on stage and they were looking down at the front, and they were looking at each other because it was me and Stuart. We were down the front during.
Oh, brilliant.
So he loved that, you know, that we were kids, but we were fans, you know, and I think that fan thing has never left me now. So, that's why I say I like to meet people after a show. I like to talk to them and do all the things. you know, you have to put up with a lot of these kind of stupid drunk people as well, I might add.
Of course.
You know,
Yes.
I'm a big guy. I can handle that, you know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's not something that concerns me greatly. But
No.
I like my audience, you know, I don't hold them in a very cynical perspective like some bands do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
essentially about money and squeezing the juice out of the nostalgia trail, you know. And although, of course, we are part of that, there can be no denying it. But I think our feet are firmly on the ground, and we have a different attitude to why we're on that stage. You know, because at this stage of my life, it's not something I need, either financially or emotionally, but it's something I really enjoy.
Well, and that's right. You can't take away the fire of rock and roll, can you? The flame is there, right?
And if you take the enjoyment away, I'm gone. That's the key. I've always said to people, they say, "Oh, you've been offered this, and it's a lot of money." I go, "That's not for me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on the bill with those kind of bands. It's the wrong kind of thing for us." And they go, "But it's a lot of money." I go, "So what? You know, it's not my thing." Yeah. So when the offer came to come to Australia, I thought, my God, it's going to be grueling because, you know, we're not coming down there in a private jet. You know, we're not Led Zeppelin. We're coming down
God, no. It's a long bloody way, mate.
Yeah. So we're coming steerage, you know, and we arrive in Brisbane and we play the same night as arriving.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
okay, lots of coffee.
So and the way we're traveling around is not like executive class, you know, it's old school. Yeah. So I'm down the gym, mate, at the moment, get myself ready for it. It's going to be tough. But the thing is, it's going to be an amazing experience. I know that. Because I think there's something instinctively tells me that what the Skids are about are going to connect with an Australian audience and a New Zealand audience.
Look, absolutely, because, I mean, if you know, like the Saints and bands like that here, the thing about that I take from, and you might not think this is right, but I listen to the Skids, and I put you in the same sort of genre as XTC and the Stranglers. You know, that's sort of a little more mature musically and emotionally in the music. And I think the Australians, they get that. They get that here.
The music stands up now, I think. And as I say, there's a fun element too. There is always a problem that some people want us just to be a serious band, and they think that my personality and, you know, the much more raconteur element of it is a kind of diversion away from the seriousness of the music. I disagree. I think from the world that we are from, the genre that we were born from, is about that. It's about communication, you know. And I'm I'm not going to deconstruct the lyrics of Animation live on stage. You know, who the hell wants that?
No.
I watched this. We did Rebellion in Blackpool last year, and I watched this American band who will remain nameless, who were on before us, and the singer, who thinks he's this kind of amazing frontman, was taking the audience through the minutiae of what they went through when they were in the studio, about the kind of microphones they used.
Oh my God!
Yeah. He was saying, "I used the Neumann 103, which is to replace the Neumann 102
with a ribbon, and
it's got a better condenser." I could see 3,000 people going, "What is this? Like some satirical thing going on here? What a load of bullshit!" And he came off stage and he was like, he thought it was a triumph, and we were looking at him going, "Mate, wait till you see what we're about to do." It kind of played into our hands because the audience were desperate for something real. And we came on with our thing, and we are real. You know, we are real people.
That's right. And you play, you know, and I mean, I'd hate to think of what you would have to sit down and go, well, I'm going to write this set list now from 40 years. You know, where would you? I mean, personally, me, everything from Absolute Game, I'm done. Think you pricked me, I'm done, right? But I'm sure there's so much that you have to go, well, yes, yes, no. And it's stuff, there must be stuff that you want to do personally for you. There's not just for the audience.
Yeah, well, there is, but I mean, it's difficult, really. I mean, we sometimes slip in Arena from the Absolute Game, which is a song that I love dearly.
Oh, yes.
But it's difficult, you know. We have a really strong set that captures songs from all of the different periods, and then we chuck in one new one, and then if we come back on, we do another new one. And plus the fact we do our own little homage in the set to, you know, the band that I feel we should do a homage to on that particular evening. It might be The Clash, might be, you know, might even be Joy Division, you know, it depends on how I feel, you know. So we kind of let rip. I mean, we do really strange cover versions. We do things like "Rock On" by David Essex. You know, we think
fantastic,
pretty cool song. You know, and
yeah.
There's a guy who was a really great songwriter, but he suffered from being too handsome. You know, because
he did right. That's right. Yes, it was in that. Is that sort of glam rock thing? Yeah,
yeah. In fact, he was really a fabulous songwriter, and he suffered because of that. I'm getting emails galore coming up going, "Where the hell are you?" from all these other interviews. So my God,
sorry, man.
I've really messed up today. Anyway, so.
Well, we can wrap it up so you can get on to your other things. But thank you for chatting. I'm so looking forward to coming and seeing you. Is May next year in Australia? It's going to be...
Well, I can't tell you how excited we are. I mean, bullshit aside, because I'm sure you hear that from a lot of acts who are coming. But
no,
there's just something that tells me this is going to work. Because, like, for example... if I was offered the same thing to go to North America, I would have said no, and that's easier for us.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
but I would have. Well, in fact, I have said no. So there's a difference.
Yeah,
if I was yes to going, and this is going to be much more grueling than that experience.
Oh God,
be. But that's going to be part of the fun of it, you know, because we don't mind that. I mean, at the moment, you would think, oh, you must have loads of road crew and stuff, because we're out playing. I'll be playing tomorrow night in Guildford. We do it ourselves still. You know, we move our own gear.
Oh, do you know what? I love hearing that. I have to say, Richard, that makes me smile. It means that, you know, it's a humble. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's real. And you know, because we can't afford it. You know, we can't afford to bring all these people on the road with us. The first thing I do when I arrive at the gig is I go and meet the sound guy, and I'm incredibly charming to him because he's going to be the guy that's going to help us. We can't bring our own person, you know, because it's just impossible. But so none of the guys I work with complain about that. They just get on with it. It's part of the fun. And we go, when we go to a city, even in England or Scotland, Ireland, or Europe, we go and visit the city. So the kind of part of the adventure. We don't go and just sit in a hotel or a dressing room. We go out and, you know, and we get a kind of connection with the place and get a sense of either it's beauty or it's horror in many cases. A lot of places are not in good shape all over the UK at the moment. So, you know, you get a sense of how people live and where they come from. And I think that's important as well. I mean, it's, again, these are old school punk ethos, and they're embedded in us now. You know, it's DNA stuff. So
that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Well, come and say hello when I'm over. Yeah, please.
I will do. Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your interviews. Have a good Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
It's coming up.
Yeah, it is. Damn. Yeah.
So quick again. Bye for now.
Shop Wayfair's Black Friday in July, now through July 29th. Get up to 80% off everything home, plus flash deals you don't want to miss. Head to wayfair.com to start shopping our lowest prices of the summer.
Wayfair, every style, every home.